You sit there, you sit there, and you sit there, and you stay put until I get back. Good morning, mushrooms, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, mothers, misters, and to all my cousins out there around the world. It's time to plug in and get the train chugging. As you saw on the show yesterday, Joe Biden called on Donald Trump to condemn the violence in the protests in Portland, and well, Trump did not condemn that, and he gave a inflammatory response to Biden. Now, inflammatory, we've got flam, that means flames, and it's like in flames, and if something is in flames, as you know from this show, heat equals anger, and so it's an inflammatory response. It is designed to provoke anger. It's incendiary, causing fire once again. And the dependent preposition, always a response to somebody. Let's learn more in the caption below. Trump's day of fury. Fury is rage, extreme anger. His day of fury reflects how he has now firmly settled on, yes, to settle on something. First he was going this way, and now maybe I'll go this way and that way, and slowly settled onto, this is my position, and he's settled there firmly, solidly. He is firmly, stably settled on it. It is decided. Just like you want, when you shake somebody's hand, you want to give them a firm handshake so they know that you're serious about it. You don't want to crush them, but you don't want to give them the dead fish. Nice and firm, solid, like you mean it. It's intentional. And so now he has firmly, solidly settled on a campaign of demagoguery. Ooh, yes, he's acting like a demagogue. Now, we're not going to get into the Greek for that, but a demagogue is a person who in their leadership, they appeal to people's base emotions rather than logic and reason. Not looking at the numbers, not looking at evidence, not looking at proof, but just going with the way that people feel. And he's, as you know, trying to inflame the people with his incendiary comments. Yes, he's appealing to people's base emotions of anger, fear, etc. That's it. So let's move on. I mean, we're seeing all sorts of conflicting reports about the polls, who's winning, who's losing, who's going to win in a landslide, who's going to lose in a landslide, and all the little hiccups and problems that might get in the way. But they seem to think that cracks are appearing, or are showing, they have appeared and they are showing in Trump's coalition. A coalition, now in other countries where they have multiple political parties, even if one party wins the majority, not the majority over 50%, but if the most votes, the other parties can form a coalition to override the party that gained the most votes. In this case, he's got a coalition of people of very diverse beliefs and ideas, and he's cobbled them together into his coalition to support him. We've got the evangelicals, we got the crazy conservatives, we got what were once true Republicans, etc., etc. But apparently we're starting to see some cracks. The foundation upon which he stands might be destabilizing. We're seeing some cracks in the concrete, so to speak. Yeah, well, only time will tell. To flip, to turn over from one side to the other. And in the US, we have only two parties, so we can say flip, because if it's not this, then it's going to be that. Ta-da! That's it. Let's move on. According to a new book, the new book reports that Mike Pence, the vice president, was on standby, ready to take over during Trump's unannounced Walter Reed visit. Now, Trump tried to just kind of dismiss it and play it off, said it was a routine checkup, whatever, but it was unannounced, and if it was just a routine checkup, then why would the vice president be on standby to take over, to become president, to take over, to assume the presidency and the powers of controlling the government? If you are on standby, you are just literally kind of standing by, waiting to see if they need you. And if maybe somebody doesn't turn up or somebody fails to do something, then you can just jump right into their position to stand in for them, sit in for them, or substitute for them, effectively taking over the role that they were supposed to be playing. Back in the day, you used to be able to fly on standby. you would just say, hey, you know what? I don't have a ticket, but if you have an open seat, last minute, I'll just go wherever you want to send me. Or if the flights were full, you could fly on standby just waiting to see if some of the other passengers didn't turn up. And then you'd be like, oh, I'm ready, coach, put me in. And you would just fill their seat for them on the plane. It used to be a cheap way to fly. I don't think you can still do that anymore. Moving on to news in China. A news anchor, that's the person around which the news show circulates. They are the pivot point, right? And so they talk to this person, they talk to that person, they interview this person, that person, but everything revolves around them, much like a boat floats around the anchor, which is sunk into the bottom of the sea. But has been detained. Ooh, nice reduced passive there. I put these together because, well, they're about the same thing and the same word. Detention, to be detained. To detain somebody usually involves keeping them in custody. Another phrase that we've had on the show countless times. If somebody's in custody, they are basically in your possession. It's usually they are being detained in jail. It shows that even in China, not even the propagandists are safe. And just like an artist arts, a propagandist propagandas. No, that's not actually a verb. But propaganda is that sort of, not necessarily always fake news. However, it could be fake, it could be lies, or it could just be a distinctly one-sided point of view, not showing the other side to counterbalance it, showing only basically the party line. And apparently, even though this person might have been towing the line, doing exactly what they say, apparently she still stepped on somebody's toes, to borrow another sort of nice figurative phrase. This person, this news anchor, is now basically, for all intents and purposes, in jail. And that's unfortunate. Past vaccine disasters show why rushing a vaccine, skipping those steps, fast tracking it a little bit too fast, because a lot of those stops on the journey towards safe public distribution are important. They exist for a reason. You don't want to skip too many of those stops. If you fast track it too fast and rush it too fast, it would be colossally stupid. Now, colossal as an adjective just means really, really big. Yeah, if you think about the 7 ancient wonders of the world, there are the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, there was the Colossus of Rhodes, an enormous statue standing near the entry to the harbor or the port, if I'm not mistaken. But also, colossal was first used, or recorded at least, I believe, by Herodotus, describing the statues in Egyptian temples. And so colossus means really big, and so really bigly stupid, basically. Because they're injecting a sort of weakened version of the virus, and if it's not weakened enough, you could just actually end up infecting people in a way where they get sick, instead of building antibodies and are able to then become immune to the virus. Okie dokie. China, this is just a flip-flop of the headline that we had yesterday. China accuses India of conducting or performing or doing flagrant provocations. Flagrant means you're going against the rules or against what's normal and what's correct or right behavior, showing complete disregard for other people's thoughts, feelings, etc. Just like in basketball, you have flagrant fouls, like when they're really trying to hurt the person as opposed to just block the shot. These are flagrant provocations, and a provocation coming from the verb to provoke someone usually into doing something else. And it's basically you're causing them to be angry. It's like you're poking them, and then eventually if you keep poking them, you might get slapped back. And we had the exact opposite yesterday, where India was accusing China of provocative incursions into their territory, or something like that. Flagrant and egregious provocations along the borders, each one trying to get the other one to make the real first move, but hopefully things don't escalate between these two massive countries, which are both also nuclear powers. Okay, moving on. We've had a derivative of this headline in the past. A Trumpian, meaning like of Trump, conspiracy theory is finding footing in a European country. Now, I believe in the past we had has found a foothold. which means like if you're climbing rocks, you need to keep going upwards. And so you're looking for that little rock somewhere to put your toe, so that way then you can push yourself up further. And so if you find a foothold, a toehold, or just find your footing, that means you're able to support yourself and then continue moving upwards. Just like when you're entering a market in business, you need to find a foothold. You need to get some footing, so that way maybe your product or service can gain traction, which is the friction between your shoe and the ground, or your tires, the wheels on the car and the pavement, which allows you to push yourself forward, or in this case, upward. The man who was killed, wow, nice reduced relative clause and a reduced passive in the Portland shooting has been identified. So and then another reduced passive, present perfect passive. He has been identified. His identity is now known. I don't believe that it has been published, but yeah. All right, just some nice reduced relative clause, the reduced passive here, like we see all over throughout these headlines. I don't know, but the point being to intercept. With intercept, you've got something that's moving from A to B. And as it's traveling between those two places, those two destinations, something else stops and interrupts it, stopping its journey, and so then it's unable to reach its target. Much like any football, you pass the ball to your teammate, but a member of the opposing team comes and gets it before it reaches its destination. A French woman was arrested for an obscene video. Now, technically, obscene usually is related to sex or sexual imagery, sexual language that people, your average public, find offensive. Oh, no. As a noun, an obscenity. It might not be necessarily related to sex. It might just be a swear, curse, or vulgar language. Something profane, a profanity, an obscenity. Something that offends the ears, and you cover your children's ears so they don't hear it, I guess, like you see in movies. Should have done it, would have done it, could have done it, should have done it, but didn't. And so now we cry. To have an impact on, to make an impact on. To make an impact on something, to have an impact on something. Just like if one car hits another car, that impact will leave a dent in the car, an indentation, vocab from last week. When the space rocks, the asteroids hit the moon, you see those circular craters that are left over, those are from the impact of the space rocks on the moon. To have an effect on. Their new style hub for facts and features about fashion's role in the climate crisis. The point being, CNN's style section has a new hub for facts. Just like on a bicycle, you've got the wheel, right? And there's the rim that goes around. Then there's the spokes, those little thin, skinny little metal spokes that connect it to the center hub. And then on either side, there's the hubs, and then the axle goes across. But the hub, just like you hear about airline hubs, say Istanbul, and then they have many different flights that radiate on those spokes to secondary and tertiary regional airports. All right, moving on. Legendary photographer who chronicled Mandela and the apartheid experience. To chronicle something. To chronicle, a chronicle is just a chronological, based on time, right? In order of what happens. The story of what happened to something. And so this person apparently followed Mandela throughout the apartheid experience. Made a cameo appearance in a record-breaking blah, 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 whatever. To make a cameo appearance is for big stars making a short appearance, playing a small role, usually in a film or a music video or something along those lines, just to get their face in there, basically. It's often done just for fun because maybe they're friends with the producer or something along those lines. Often they're playing themselves, like when Bill Murray played Bill Murray in Zombieland. Trump's depraved plan to try and win re-election. Depraved, good word. It's dark, it's dangerous, it's evil, it's morally wicked, it's just evil. He's going to try and steal votes from people by not allowing them to vote by mail. He's going to suppress the vote by denying registration. He's going to do this, do that. Who knows? I don't know. That's the author's opinion. Yeah, because this summer we're not out, we're not traveling as much as we used to, as much as we were used to doing and we used to do. Stay put, just to stay at home. And the idea, when I see this phrase, it makes me think of my mother. And she had 3 little boys, and we'd be fighting doing something, and she'd be like, "You sit there, you sit there, and you sit there, and you stay put until I get back. If one of you, blah, blah, blah. You stay put, because I put you there, and I want you to stay there." And so COVID put us here, home in our places, and we're staying put. It may keep changing us forever because people are starting to recalibrate some of their values, their interests. People are growing new hobbies or finally dedicating time to some of the hobbies they had or didn't know they even had. Yeah, chasing their passions, following their dreams, unleashing their creativity. All of these things. To take something or someone for granted. Now let's start with the granted. To grant a wish. Yeah, like a genie. You rub the lamp, the genie comes out, and he says, "I will grant you 3 wishes." And so those things are yours. And if you take something as granted, it means that you think or you assume it will always be there. And because you think it will always be there or it will always be that way, you just count on it. You stop valuing it and you stop showing that you're grateful for that. And so if you take something for granted, it means that you're no longer appreciating it because it's always been there, you think it always will be there, and so you're not demonstrating that thankfulness, that gratitude, yeah? And so Trump can't take the evangelical vote for granted. He has had their vote, and the Republicans in general have had their vote because of their stance on these social issues for things like abortion, etc. However, getting back in touch with the teachings of Jesus and compassion and humility, etc., and so they might flip the vote. Some of them might start voting Democratic, and so that could be one of those cracks that are appearing in his coalition of voters that we spoke about above. All right, cool. Last up, ex-police chief. Police should never welcome the help of vigilantes. Vigilantes are normal, everyday people who decide to take justice into their own hands. We're seeing now in the US, a lot of these Republican lunatics and Trump supporters, they're going out with their guns and they're saying, "I'm going to just shoot people if they come near me." They think they're protecting law and order, but at the same time, they are not the people that have been entrusted to protect that. They don't have the training. They're working solely on their own emotions and opinions, not within the law, but outside the law. Vigilante justice, although it sounds romantic, it sounds kind of sexy, it's not something that we want because it's just really a descent into anarchy because everyone else has their idea of justice and values and what's right, and so that just means we're going to have people killing each other. So, yeah. Let's stick to the letter of the law and not just our own emotions. This was English Otherwise, breaking down the news. We will see. I'll let you know. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please do click the like, the follow, subscribe, add some comments. It really does help out. And even better, pass us along to a friend. Spread the love. Help the world. I'll be back 8 p.m. for the news tomorrow as well. So if I don't see you sooner, I'll see you at 8 p.m. tomorrow. Have a beautiful night or day, wherever you may be. Bye-bye.